Mr. Mdlalose?
Thank you, Honourable Chair. I think what I'll do is maybe just take a few matters that were directed specifically at Vodacom, and maybe just add one or two points on the generic matters. I think firstly the matter with Mr. Makate, and please call me. I think it's important to say categorically that this is not about dragging it out. This is before the Constitutional Court, and we too await the outcome of that. We have in various ways tried to engage and come to a table. We simply have not agreed on quantums, and it's before the Constitutional Court. So I think just to leave that one there for the moment. I think the second one that was specific to Vodacom was on data pricing, and to the honourable member, the 5 gigabyte is available, and it is available on mobile. It's not a separate internet offer. It's actually there. In fact, as the session was going on, Honourable Chair, there were people on social media asking about it. Our team has responded to them, shown them exactly where they buy it. It's fully available. It's not hidden somewhere. It's actually there. And part of it, Chair, lies the problem around the price of data. Of which some of it is around the perception of the price of data, which we will need to work on harder to ensure that that is more available. The fact that you are not aware that that is available is part of the challenge for us to make you aware of that. And I think those are some of the elements. You're correct, Honourable Member, in terms of some of the different channels of what you can find maybe on a banking app, but you can't find it here and so on. Within our business, there's different ways to distribute our products, if you like, so to sell our bundles and so on. And each of those different channels, if you like, have different commercials that you need to pay. So what you can maybe sell on this channel will cost you a little bit more there. And so there might be different prices on different channels, but ultimately the 5 gigabytes is available for customers. It's available on all of our channels that we distribute directly. So just to put that one categorically and make that clear on that. I think the data expiry one is also, Honourable Chair and members, what you've raised passionately. And maybe I can join my fellow CEO and give a separate example to try and explain the matter which has been spoken about at length. The data pricing that we price for is based on how we dimension the network. So we say this is what we need to input into the network to create the network to be able to carry the data, and therefore we charge on the basis of that. If one was looking at the price of making something fully available all of the time, it is obviously more expensive than dimensioning it differently at different times. And so to buy a data bundle is not like buying a loaf of bread. Buying a data bundle is buying access to something, almost like buying a Gautrain ticket. You can buy a Gautrain ticket for a week, for 2 days, for a return for a month, and it's the access that it's giving you to that service. To just reiterate and maybe use it in this example, if you were creating an endless accessibility to something, it would almost be saying that you want to build a 5-lane highway right across the country, because it must always be able to take 5 cars at the same time. And you would build that road network, if I'm just using roads as an example, you would build a 5-lane highway all across the network through every road. The end result of that, Honourable Chair, is it will actually push data costs up. So the very fact of bringing the validities down is an ability that we have and a tool that we have used to make the entry points more affordable for people who want to use them at a more affordable entry point. And therefore we dimension the network accordingly that way. That's part of the journey. The longer validities are available on the network. But you'll see that the shorter validities, and another honourable member spoke about prepaid, actually those bundles are cheaper because there are pro-poor bundles, because they are within the poorest towns that we have, the top 2,000 towns and so on. So those two things are linked, and that's how one should look at and think about these things. But again, happy to send a more detailed response to the committee. There was a question specifically to Vodacom on foreign ownership. Vodacom Group is indeed owned by 65% by Vodafone Group. This gives us a few things, Honourable Member. The first thing that it gives us is it gives us an ability to be part of a world-class company. What we have access to are technologies, ideas from right across the group, from how things are being done in Spain to UK to Italy to Germany. There's nothing you'll find, Honourable Member, that we are, as a group, that the Germans can say they're doing that we haven't brought to South Africa. So we have the power of bringing world class into our business by being part of a bigger group. On top of that, we also have the ability to procure equipment and use the buying power of the group to ensure that we're procuring the things that we procure with the power of being part of a global group which has bigger procurement. But that being said, there are very strong local shareholders within Vodacom Group. So the PIC holds 12% of the share of Vodacom Group, and Yebo Yetu, which is our BE vehicle, equally holds 5%. So there's, along with all the other individual shareholders who trade in Vodacom shares individually. The point on infrastructure sharing, Chair, I won't belabor it, but again, just to give perhaps a different angle, the MTN CEO is correct. We do share on a lot of the sites, right across both of our sites, 2,000 roughly, as he said, of both of our sites. We share fiber. The question, Chair, is what is the step change? What is the difference that we can continue to make to continue to become more effective and efficient? And part of that is deepening that sharing. And deepening that sharing means not just sharing, for example, the mast, the actual physical tower. The question needs to be around, can we share the active part of our equipment? So the actual radio network, can we share in different ways? Can we not only share what we've built, but plan where to build? And so on and so on. And all of that needs to happen within the legislative framework that is available to us. And that's where we would need collective and collaborative support from yourselves and from all the legislators on being able to do that. There was a question specifically for Vodacom around selling of people's data. I want to make that very, very clear. We comply to all POPI regulations, and we do not do anything outside of that at all. So I just want to say that is not, factually speaking, not correct at all. We comply in every aspect of that. So just to be clear on that one. On RICA, this is a big challenge for many of our customers. Many people's data is stolen in terms of their phones are hacked and so on. And the key element on RICA will be that switch. We've been working as an industry collaborative with the Department of Justice, but it is to make that legislative switch to enable and enforce biometric registration. A registration that links, that when someone registers for a SIM card, that registration needs to link back to the Home Affairs database, to the harness database, and give and be a point that can verify that. And unless that happens, it doesn't continue. So really bring in the biometric element, but also start to limit, for example, legislation that limits the number of SIM cards that one person can own. And those are the kind of legislative measures we need to be able to collectively deal with the issue and improve the RICA framework and registration legislation.
1 minute, CEO.
Thank you, Chair. Another specific one on Vodacom, in fact it was for all, was about exiting contracts. Important to say that when contracts are entered into, particularly most of those involve a device that's part of that contract. And what has happened with that device is, as an MNO, we've gone and we've procured the device from the OEM. We have put money into that device to reduce the cost of it. So we've invested in it on the basis that a customer will be with us for 24 months or 36 months. If that customer is going to leave early, then we would need to recoup the price or the cost of the device. And so that's some of the complexities that sometimes come up with regards to the different areas. Honourable Chair, I think I will leave it at that, and maybe all the others we will bring through in writing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. CEO?
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the members of the committee. Likewise, like my colleagues as well, we really acknowledge the concerns, and we're really here to actually find solutions across all of these. So I think, Chair, I'll touch mostly on the ones that are directed at Telkom, but also some that are a little bit industry specific. So I think the question of infrastructure sharing, I think you're really spot on that one. We, as MNOs, we're actually not really competing at an infrastructure level anymore. I think infrastructure sharing should be encouraged. We do, however, have been engaging ICASA and also the Competition Commission on some of the issues that could potentially be seen as collusion. And I think we are being listened to, and possibly you guys could also help us to expedite those processes to make sure that at least the rules around the game of infrastructure sharing are actually quite clear to everyone, and we don't find ourselves in a spot of bother with regards to the Competition Commission. So I really encourage that. On the question of data expiry, I think my other two colleagues have really vented on this one, trying to sort of explain the impact on the network itself in terms of how you create capacity and how that would actually impact and push on the input costs of actually creating even a gig of data. The other view is actually for every airtime that hasn't been utilized by the customer, because you've sold a service and you haven't delivered on that service, you actually have to put a contingent liability on your balance sheet. And as you carry this liability every year and it grows, it might grow to a point where your liabilities are much higher than your assets, and therefore you are technically insolvent. When you do go to a bank to raise money to actually invest back on actually improving the same network, the rate within which the banks will give you would actually be based on the fact that you are insolvent, almost like a default customer. So the cost of credit shoots up. When the cost of credit shoots up, it becomes an input cost to a gig of data. Therefore, we can't maintain the low prices. So there's a lot of complications. However, what we've done, especially on our side, is to actually, maybe to Sito's point, is to create specific propositions for customers where particularly you can buy a gig of data or even megabytes of minutes and utilize it within the specific space of time, so that we are not forcing you to buy a gig of data that you won't be able to finish within a day. So you can get daily, we've got what we call daily bundles, we actually have WhatsApp bundles, and all of these bundles are actually tailor-made for customers to ensure that whatever you've bought, you can actually utilize it as well. So there's many things that we're trying to do as MNOs to make sure that at least we can meet customers halfway with regards to this one. When it comes to data prices, I think it's been shared by my colleagues as well, but what I wanted to actually emphasize on is actually the input cost of running a mobile tower. So there's the rental, there's the batteries you have to buy, there's the diesel costs, and all of those actually contribute to a price that you can actually pass on to the customer. In most cases, most of these input costs, we actually absorb them as companies and try and actually take them on the chin before we can actually pass on to customers, so that we can keep certain prices for certain types of customers at a much lower rate. And we actually go as far as we create what we call, more town deals that are specific to certain towns and certain areas. And obviously, when you go to the internet and Google these prices, you're not going to find them, because they are below the line. It's only when you are a customer and you subscribe to some of our platforms, and most prepaid customers actually know these platforms. Ours is called Monice, and they actually know the type of bundles that they get below the line. There was a question of airtime advance and some of the services that we provide as MNOs, such as streaming or content. They are value-added services to our core. It is not a core of what we're actually selling. Specifically at airtime advance, we're not in the banking space at all. We actually partner with people that already have banking licenses that actually understand how credit works. We do not charge interest on airtime credit. There is a minimal service fee, which is really minimal as opposed to when you're actually taking out a loan, and that is just to cover the cost of the actual platform itself. They do actually help customers to buy a lot more airtime on credit. It's actually a product that is enjoyed a lot by prepaid customers. They don't feel like we're actually exploiting them, because it is actually quite cheap. And it's actually, in certain instances, called an emergency top-up solution, because it's really when you have an emergency and you can't afford to buy airtime, and we actually give you this product. There was issue of coverage versus service obligations, and I think my two colleagues have covered that. But what I wanted to say was, especially with regards to how we roll out these what do you call it, PSIs, right? Public service institutions. We don't view them as just, PSIs where we drop a router and actually leave. In most instances, that's why when we engage with school principals, we look at their connectivity requirements for the entire school. What has tended to happen is that it's been a miscommunication between the different departments as to what are MNOs supposed to do when they rock up at a school. And we're trying to clear those to say we don't just want to drop a router, because a router at the principal's office is not really going to help anyone. We actually would like to make sure that the entire school is connected. In certain instances where we have mobile towers in some schools, and we actually have backup power in the form of solar, we actually do share it with schools, because in some instances you realize the schools is not even electrified. In most instances, sometimes we actually help them with gas stoves and actually gas itself, so that they can actually cook food for the kids. So we actually look at total solutions. Where you find us, where we've just dropped a router as an example, which is not something we're not proud of, it's because we're not finding each other with the school principals. It's actually not really, playing ball or not even allowing us. We haven't dropped a router and left it there, but we've just dropped it so that we don't incur the cost of reverse logistics, so that we continuously engage with the school. And I'm going to come to the past one, right? I'm going to come to the past one so that I can also allay your own fears. So we actually drop it, engage, and then go back when we found each other with the school to actually connect the entire school. When we talk about homes passed, it actually means we've built the highway. You actually don't have houses as yet. That's how the network is actually built. The intention is to actually connect everyone there. And not most people usually want to connect to fiber, because customers have got different needs. In some instances, they just want a fixed wireless router, and that's what they use in that particular home. And in some instances, they actually use their own phones to connect everyone in the house. So it's basically dependent on each household if they actually want us to actually pull a fiber line into a house is actually much cheaper for us. To pass homes is much more expensive because we have to pull it from far away. So our intention is to actually connect everyone, and it depends on each own in each home if they actually want to be connected. In some instances, we've dropped what we call an ONT and said, here's a free service that you can use, and if you do like it, after 3 months, you can engage with us if you want to sign up as a customer. And we've actually created prepaid fiber products so that you can buy fiber almost like a prepaid customer on mobility as well, so that we can make it cheaper for people. The difficulty is if you don't create the infrastructure and you actually pass that time without doing that, to go back becomes much more expensive. That's why we sort of laid out, Chair and the members of the committee. There was an issue that was raised on OTTs in terms of, can we really limit access to these OTTs and what they allow our people to do? The answer is, it's a difficult one. We don't own the actual application itself, so we can't regulate the content or even block it. And in certain instances, if you do that, you actually have to block the entire country to have access to the internet, in essence, because broadband services are actually provided as such. However, we've been engaging with with the department as well, as to, can we expedite the regulations around OTTs? So, for instance, in Dubai, you can't make a WhatsApp call because it is regulated and blocked that you can't do that to protect the MNOs in that country. You can use WhatsApp on data. So these things, we've seen them elsewhere that they can potentially be done. And on RICA issues, I don't want to touch on that. I think my colleagues have touched on it. I think biometrics is possibly the future. Some difficulties that you have if people are living in informal structures. You don't have a proper address, and you actually have to capture something around that individual. In some instances, people don't have proper documents, like such as IDs, but they do want the service. You've got to capture something. So how we've been engaging with the Department of Justice is to actually find solutions around those issues themselves. The balance between AI and people, I think in most instances, AI is actually enabling people, but we do spend a lot of money and investment in actually upskilling people so that they can participate in this world that is becoming much more AI-enabled, so that they have the skills to actually do that rather than be caught up on old skills that are not necessarily needed by industry. And lastly, Chair, there was I think you started with it, are we government-owned or are we privately owned? We are proud to be owned by government. 40% of our company is owned by government, another 9% by the PIC. And by the way, the PIC that manages the public sector pension funds owns almost every company in South Africa, including companies listed on the JSE. We are also listed on the JSE, which enables us to actually raise capital that would not necessarily be able to raise if we're not allowed to, would actually possibly be coming back to government to actually ask for money to invest back. So it has actually allowed us to be flexible. That's why we were able to do the things that we're doing. And we're also very grateful that we've been able to do that. And lastly, we are exempt from PFMA, so we actually have a little bit of agility in terms of how we procure the services, because we do compete with the guys that are largely privately owned, and they play by different rules, and you have to play by those rules to be able to survive. And I hope that actually answers the question. So at this point, Chair, I will rest, and I think we'll sort of maybe do maybe a physical submission if there's anything that I've missed. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Madam